Welcome to this episode of Wild Woof Love. Today I have with me Eve Molzhon. Eve, thank you so much for joining me again.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me.
It's great to have you here because it's good to have a trainer's perspective, a trainer's point of view on dog. I really appreciate you spending some time with us.
No problem. Well, during COVID, so many people went and got puppies or they were home with their puppies, so they realized all those little nuances that were occurring when they weren't around.
Absolutely. And before we get going into what we're going to talk about today, I have a couple of confessions to make to you. The first one is kind of a fun one. Your Facebook page, Fun for Pets Dog Care and or Daycare and Boarding. I might have
Yep.
said that wrong.
Nope, you're right. That's it.
Ever since I discovered that, I go there 1, 2, 3 times a week, and I look at the videos, and they are just the happiest videos. If you're having kind of the slightest rough day, going and looking at those videos, they're so sweet. They just perk me up, and I have to admit, I go there.
Well,
I
fabulous. This past weekend, I got a little sassy. There was this little white Maltese that when we would go outside would just talk away to me. So I was like, I hear you, Sally stole your boyfriend. Like I gave her barking a little story.
yeah.
And oh my goodness, it was super funny. And yeah, every let out she would do that. And then I would just add to her story, oh, you talked to your boyfriend? Is he dumping Sally for you? And like,
Yeah. They're the sweetest videos, and I have dogs, and they cheer me up, and but just watching those videos just instantly, it gives me a lift, and it brightens my day, and I thank you for putting those on there.
oh, well, thanks. Yeah, they're fun. I know our pet parents watch them. I know our pet grandparents watch them. And yeah, and it's fun to put on. It's fun to show the side of the dog.
Yeah, and to see the doggy daycare, to see the interactions, the dogs playing, the pack, it's a lot of fun to watch those.
Yeah, and it also teaches people,
Mhm.
they're seeing what dog and dog interaction looks like in a live video environment. So that way, if they go to the dog park or they invite the neighbor dog over, it gives them that conversation, that context to be like, oh, is this too rough? Is this appropriate? And really helps to educate as well.
Yeah, and thanks for doing that. My second confession to you is on the first episode you were with us, you talked about feeding your dog by hand, that bonding time, doing that, or if you were too busy, putting it on the floor, just talking to them while they were eating. And I did that. I told you I was going to do it. But I really did because it was something that I was like, "Oh, it makes sense," but I'd never heard of it and I never tried it. And I have good dogs. I will say I have good dogs and I feel like I've bonded with them, but this was a unique and fun way and I did bond with them even more.
Yeah.
And they do get tired of their food and I do worry about that. And I can't go change the food constantly because one of them has a really tender tummy.
Yeah.
So doing that, it really changed the dynamics in my house.
It does, doesn't it? Like it's the craziest thing. But
Yeah.
you are giving that dog one-on-one attention, and they're associating that affection and that feeling and the vibration that you are giving off, just having that moment.
Absolutely, and I found that they just you can tell dogs, they have certain expressions and
Oh, yeah.
their faces, you can tell that they love the attention from you. They love that one-on-one attention, and my dogs, it really has kept them from being real bored with their food because they
Mhm.
do get real bored with the food, and they love that extra love in the morning, and occasionally either I'm just way too tired and I do put it down in front of me, or
Yeah.
I am busy getting ready for the day and I do put it on the floor and I don't necessarily always hand feed them. It has changed the dynamic between the dogs too.
Yes.
Uh,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It gives them pause, and that's a word the industry has kinda started to adapt, but it just causes the dog to pause and take it in. And even if you do that scatter feeding, where you just throw it on the floor and they're like, "Oh my gosh, best thing ever." Right? Running around, snacking up their food. Yeah, it causes a different euphoric state for the dog.
my dogs, one of them would be at the bowl and the other one would be kind of timid to go over. And since I started doing that, when they would eat from their bowl, because we just do it in the morning and there's food the rest of the day in the bowl. The timid dog is less timid in going over and eating out of the bowl next to the more, uh, pack leader type of dog that I have. It's changed that dynamic too.
Right, because you showed that you gave permission, right? So because you have endorsed the feeding by doing it by hand. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's changed things in ways I couldn't well, I didn't imagine would really happen. I always thought my pack leader dog was always going to be pack leader, which she will be. And well, I call her bossy sometimes too. That she was going to be the boss of the other one, and the other one was always going to be meek. And I got them on a little more equal status, which I really like.
Sure. Well, it brought your bossy one down
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
she understood, oh, mom does this for both of us. We are both special. We both get private time.
Hmm.
Yeah, when we talk to people who have two dogs in the household who don't always get along and there's little tiffs and things like that, we tell them you need to do obedience training together. So one dog on your right, one dog on your left, they both sit, they both get a cookie. They both lay down, they both get a cookie. Because then they learn, oh my gosh, we both work together. We both can do this stuff. It's not always a competition over mom or food bowl or toy. It can be done simultaneously.
Yeah, so I think the feeding by hand was the greatest tip for me that I've tried in a very long time. And if you have the chance to try it at home, for those who are listening, try it a couple of times and see how it goes. And if you don't like necessarily feeding by hand or getting their, sloppy face in your hand, the scatter feeding is awesome too. I
Yeah.
think it really is. It's changed the dynamic. And so those are my two confessions for you.
Fabulous, fabulous. I love them both.
They're good confessions, and what I wanted to talk with you about today is my Violet. She she barks, but she barks when we're walking. She's the sweetest big Bernie doodle, and think she is just wanting to meet people. I think if she did meet all these people, because they're usually across the street or ahead of us, or what have you, I think that she wants to be friends, and she doesn't have many friends outside of my home because of COVID, and she was a puppy for those first few years. So, but when we go out, from the moment we step out, I'm not sure if she's barking to hear herself or if she's just barking at people because there doesn't always have to be somebody there. And I have to admit that she's such a good dog. She's such a sweet thing, and it's hard for me to get really mad at her, but we were out on the stoop on Friday, and there were some dogs with their person walking towards us, and I didn't lose it in a bad way, but I kinda lost it. I was so frustrated because nothing is working. I don't know whether it's a good or a bad, bark that she's doing that because she kinda gets out of control, and I need to have her in control because she's 75 pounds of big dog, and I was just like, "Shut up." I was at my wit's end, and I was wondering if you have some thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Well, first off, I think you just communicated what 90% at least of your listeners talk about, that whole "can you just shut up" moment, right? We've all been there. As
Mhm.
trainers, we get there too. Like we know, and then we're like, "Oh my god, I just had that thought and I'm a trainer. What did I just think that for?" And it is frustration. And it's frustration for the dog and it's frustration for us because we're not communicating effectively. And it doesn't matter the breed. It doesn't. I have hound dogs that will bark when they smell something 10 miles away. They're like, "Oh, I just smelled a squirrel." And I have no idea why they're barking, but boy, are they excited to bark and let me know they just smelled a squirrel. So dogs bark for various reasons. In your case, you kind of know what the reason is. Now, the question is she barking because she's like, hey, mom, do you see them? Hey, mom, do you see them? Hey, that might be one bark. That one's really common when you're out for a walk or when the dog sees something out your window and you're in the house and you're in the kitchen and you're going, "Shut up, stop barking," right? Like, think of all those words that come out of your mouth,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
especially when you're in the house when nobody can supposedly hear you. Um, and then when you're outside, you're like, "Shut up." They might be barking and saying, "Oh my God, let's meet," communicating with
Yeah.
they think they're communicating with the other human or the other dog. Or it might be, "This is my mom, back off. This is my mom, back off." so it is hard to tell. Usually I tell people, look at the other signs your dog is giving. Is the tail up or the tail down? Are the ears pinned back or the ears up? Is the hair standing up on the back of their nape or is it down? Right? Are they wiggle butting while they're barking? So that will just kind of help to dissect what type of bark is it. Is it a hey, I want to come meet you? Is it a hey, this is my mom, stay away from me? Is it mom, mom, I do you see this? Do you see this? I'm a little scared because that thing is over there. So those are the three basic areas that we try and define the bark. So then we can figure out, does your dog need direction? Does your dog need redirection? And then how can we work on that? So you talked about doing the scatter feeding. So one of the most popular ways to get your dog to redirect from the bark, whether it's a I'm scared and we need to move past this thing, or I want to go say hello. And we use the word find it. So you start in the house, right? You do your scatter, you throw the food, you say find it. Now we go outside, and before we see said scary thing, we're going to train this. You can use their kibble, you can use a treat. Some dogs, when they get outside, they're so excited, right? They're like, oh my God, we're outside. It's like going to Chuck E. Cheese. So then you might need to use a little bit higher value, a hot dog, some chicken, something like that. And you throw it on the ground and you say, find it. Make sure they see it as you're doing this training. And so that way, then when you've done this 4 or 5 times, you're like, find it, find it. And then you go on your walk and all of a sudden they see the thing that they're going to bark about, or they start to bark and you go, find it. And you throw the thing and they're like, oh, nose to the ground. I've now forgotten about that thing that I was just barking about because I know find it means I get something really awesome on the ground.
Yeah.
If you live in too urban of an area or where it's just you're uneasy of throwing something on the ground, there's cigarette butts, there's chew packets, there's whatever, then they just turn and look at you. So same thing, we started in the house. Before you go on your walk, you're going to take 3 or 4 laps within your home and you say the dog's name and they look at you and then you give them the cookie. Then we go outside. Every 2 to 3 steps, you call their name, they look at you, you give them a cookie. You call their name, give them a cookie. Every time they look at you, you give them a cookie. Do that for about 10 cookies. And then watch yourself where you're walking and about every 3 or 4 steps, they're just going to look at you and you don't even need to call their name. And then you give them the cookie.
Uh-huh.
So we're training them that anytime that you're out for a walk, they need to check in. And then it gets them to the point where they see the thing that they want to bark about. And if they don't automatically look at you, you call their name, they turn and look, they get the cookie. And then you can hold that cookie in your hand and make them kind of fight for it. You know how you've done that? You've teased them a little bit, right? Like you held the
Yeah.
little stinky treat in your hand and they have to like muzzle their nose into there to get it.
Oh, yeah.
You can now do that as you're walking. And now you're past the thing that's going to make them bark and lose their mind. And then you go, good. And you hand them their cookie.
So they're still getting the reward. They're being distracted,
Correct.
and we're teaching them over the short and the long term.
Yeah. If you do 1 walk a day and you start with, again, either the find it or you call their name,
Uh-huh.
always start it a little bit in the house just because you're setting them up to this
Yeah.
is my expectation.
Yeah.
And then when we go outside, we're going to do the same thing, on your personal sidewalk or just right out in front. Practice it. If your dog is just super excited to go outside for a walk, you might just want to walk up and down your driveway or your piece until they get the concept. And then you start on your little jaunt. If you do 1 walk a day, in
Uh-huh.
2 weeks, your dog's going to have this mastered.
Yeah.
And these walks don't need to be long. You don't need to do it for half an hour or an hour. It doesn't need to be the 10-mile hike.
Yeah.
Literally a walk around the block, if that.
Uh-huh.
If you can keep it short and to the point, they'll master it super quickly. This is also how we teach loose leash walking
Yeah. Yeah.
because that dog, and when I say loose leash, I mean that dog does not need to be with its shoulder blades behind my kneecap. The dog just needs to not pull me.
Yeah.
They can be in
Yeah.
front of me, 2 feet. They can be behind me a couple. That's irrelevant. The key is the dog is not dragging you down the sidewalk.
And I think for me, this would also be good for Violet because she is so unaware of her bigness, of where she's at, if
Oh,
she's stepping on me,
absolutely.
if she's in front of me, if she's gonna trip me, because I want my walk too, and I want her to have her walk, but I'm having to pay attention, or I get to trip over my dog. So her
Yeah,
checking in with me constantly may make her a little more aware of where she's at.
absolutely, because they're always turning to look, always turning to look,
C
always turning to look. And even
Yeah.
if you have a well-behaved dog and you see the neighbor coming and their dog's losing their mind, and it might be causing your dog stress. So again, teaching that, look at me, see, let that stressful thing just walk on by. You got this. I have belief in you. I'm validating your feelings. Like, let's keep moving forward. We got this. Because what most people do when you're out on the walk, right, and your dog starts barking, you pull up on the leash, and now your fingers and your fists are at your chest because you've pulled up on the leash, and now you're having that conversation with your dog as quietly as you can of, shh, stop, no bark, shut up,
Uh-huh,
damn it,
uh-huh,
along with maybe a few other words. And
uh-huh.
you're trying to restrain your dog,
Yeah.
which now you're in conflict with your dog because of the restraint. You've pulled up on
Mhm,
the leash. You are now tense
mhm.
because you have flexed your muscles. You are now translating tension down. And now the dog's like, mom's tense. She just pulled up. What's going on? Now I'm on high alert and maybe I'm going to bark more.
Yeah.
Maybe now I'm going to associate every time we see a thing, the human, the dog, mom pulls up. I need to be on guard because mom's nervous. They start to associate that to where if your hand is down because you're given a cookie and you're
Yeah.
remembering, I have to call my dog's name. He has to turn. I have to give him a cookie and then step up your pace just a little bit. You don't have to run. Don't be like, oh my God, there's the thing. Let's run. Here's a cookie. Just start walking a little faster. Be like, oh, there it is. Okay, 1, 2, cookie, 1, 2, cookie, 1, 2, cookie.
Yeah.
Because then the dog's like, oh, something exciting. Again, it's distracting them from that thing across the street or the thing coming at you. If the thing's coming at you and that dog's pulling that owner by the end of the leash, and you're like, I have no idea how this is going to go. It's going to go really good or
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
And again, if your dog is even well behaved, step off the sidewalk, step in between two cars, take your dog out of the situation. Your job as a pet parent is to lead your dog to a good life.
Yeah.
Just like if you see something shady coming down the sidewalk and you have your kid with you, you're going to step off to the side, right? Like you're going to
Yes.
lead the situation to be safe and healthy. No different than your dog. Don't
Absolutely.
expect,
Yeah.
don't expect your dog to lead you. That's not what we want. You don't want your dog leading you down the sidewalk. You need to lead your dog. And
Yeah.
again, it doesn't matter if the dog's a few feet in front of you, a few feet behind you, whatever. As long as the leash is loose, a lot of times I tell people take your thumb and stick it in the pocket of your coat or your hoodie or your pants. Just hook your thumb there because then that causes you to not be pulling up on that leash. That's a big reason why we like those dog walking belts
Oh,
because then
yeah.
you're physically not touching the leash. So you're not transferring your emotions through the leash.
Because dogs absolutely pay attention to your body language.
Oh, certainly.
They definitely read that as much as, they know their words, and I think I'm a bad pet parent because I have walked dogs for a lot of years. And I'm kinda like one of those I do everything right when I'm out walking other people's dogs, but when it's my dogs and I'm home, I feel like sometimes I struggle for leader of the pack.
If you meet a dog trainer and they don't own a crappy dog, they're probably not a good dog trainer. I'm serious. Every great, phenomenal dog trainer I know has at least one crappy dog because they go, yeah, you know what? It's my dog. Whatever. It's like the craziest thing. When I started dog training and I would meet these trainers and they're like, oh, yeah, you can't touch Fluffy over there. Fluffy will eat your face. And I'm like, but you're a trainer. No, I know. I just make excuses for it. I love to train other people's dogs,
Mhm.
just not my
Yeah,
own.
okay. I don't feel
Um,
so alone then.
No, no. Dr. Ian Dunbar, who's like one of the godfathers of dog training, he lets his dog jump up on him. And he said, I trained my dog, I gave it a word. So when my dog does something naughty, I take that opportunity and I give it a word.
Yeah.
So up was his word. And he goes, "So when I come home from a week of traveling and I walk in the door, I want my dog to jump on me and give me love. I've missed it.
Yeah.
But when I have someone coming into my house, I don't want the dog to jump on them." So by giving the negative a word, that's how he trained his dog. Yep, hup. And then the dog jumps up on him and gives him hugs and kisses. When people come over, he says, "No hup, no hup." And then the dog knows, don't
Ah,
jump up on them.
yeah.
It's just one of those where, again, jumping up on people, right? Like we train our dogs not to do that, but yet we love it when they jump up and cuddle with us, right?
Yeah.
So, how
Oh,
is the dog supposed to
yeah.
know when it's okay and when it's not? You give it a word.
Absolutely.
Now, when you're walking down the street and your dog's barking at somebody, you don't want to tell your dog, shut up, like, so we're
Yeah.
giving it something different,
Uh-huh.
to train them to always check in with you. You're leading them to safety and happiness and healthiness.
Yeah, because the 3 of us, because I bring up both of my dogs at the same time, we all
Mhm.
want a good walk. We love to walk. Could this transfer to any bad behavior that somebody's having on their walk with their dog?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I said, we use this technique to teach loose leash walking. So when I have hounds who their nose is to the ground, right? Like they just want to sniff everything. And the owners are like, yeah, but they drag me because they want to sniff everything. Great. Guess what you're going to play? Find it. Your whole walk. You're just going to throw kibble. And if the dog doesn't catch it, just keep walking. Don't stop and have the dog come back. Enjoy your walk. But you're going to have take their 1 cup of food or 2 cup, whatever. Take some of their food, stick it in your pocket. You're going to show them that you got it when you start out your walk. Do a couple find its again as you're going down your driveway, and then your entire walk. Every now and again, find it and you throw something, because then that keeps them closer to you because they know mom's going to throw that find it. I'm going to get that
Yeah.
something, right? It keeps them engaged because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for something to use their nose because they're nose dogs, those hounds, whether it's a beagle or a plot hound or blue tick, it doesn't matter, right? Like they want to use their nose. So you're
Yeah.
you're creating that scenario, but at your pace.
That's the best advice, and I'm gonna be trying that in between now and the next time we talk.
There you go. There you go. And the only difference is when your dog is barking in the house. So we get a lot of people like, "Oh, yeah, my dog jumps up on the couch and looks out the window and freaks out every time it
Ah.
sees people walking by."
Mhm.
Okay, well, first off, you're going to have to move your couch for a week or two
Yeah.
because we need to do a little bit of training. And the
Okay.
training can't happen when your dog is escalated already at the window because you didn't know something was coming. So I
Yeah.
always tell people, figure out something to remove the couch or close your drapes or whatever it needs to be for a week or two while we work on this. But that's what we're working on, right?
Yeah.
So ring your doorbell, throw some stuff on the ground, find it. So they associate every time the doorbell rings, I go to my dog bed or I stand 5 feet from the door.
Oh.
And you can I usually start it way far away, as far as I can from the door. As a trainer, I just go to the hardware store, and for $10 you can get a wireless doorbell system. So I hold the button in my hand and then I plug the chimer into an outlet. So then I'm 10 feet away from the door. I hit the button, it chimes, and I'm like, find it. And I throw the food down. And then we teach the weight in there. And then we slowly work our way to the door. So I can hit the doorbell, knock on the door, pizza delivery. And
Yeah,
we say stuff. We're
yeah.
like, delivery, hello, and that type of thing. So you're going to do that for the window. So you can do that as the find it. Again, you're teaching the dog. You'll see somebody out the window and the dog starts to lose his mind. Then you're like, find it. And then they come running to you. The second thing you can do, and this is an in the house thing or the backyard. So you said your dogs are great in the backyard, which is typically not the case.
One of them is great in the backyard.
Perfect. So the other scenario, you're gonna have to leave some slip-on shoes or something near your door. So dogs in the backyard and it's barking in the corner of your yard, and you're like, what? I don't know what they're barking at. You're calling them in, they're not coming. Well, no, they're not coming because when they're in the backyard and they're barking, it's usually, Mom, Mom, hey, hey, there's something over here. Come here, Mom, Mom, come here. Right? That's what they're doing.
Yeah,
They're
yes.
trying to get your attention because there's something really cool. It might just be a leaf that just happened to land in that spot, but it's not supposed to be there. You got to slip on your shoes. You're going to walk over, pat your dog on the head or scratch their butt. Doesn't matter. You need to physically touch them, not spanking them, but you're going to physically touch them in a positive manner and go, yep, good, let's go. And then reward
Ah,
them as you're walking away.
okay.
So there's two reasons. One, you need to validate what they're doing. You got to validate that. Secondly, you're teaching them that when I say, yep, good, let's go, meaning coming back to you or come or whatever your word is to get
Mhm.
them to come to you. So you're training them. So now and again, this takes some time. So you can plant stuff in your yard or you can set up scenarios.
Yeah.
But if you did this, let's say once a week, twice a week for a month,
Mhm.
now the dog's in the corner of the yard. You open the door and you say, Fluffy, yep, good, come. The dog's gonna go, oh, mom validated what I saw and she's telling me to come and now I'm gonna get a cookie.
And that tone of voice is important.
Absolutely. If you're out there going, knock it off, shut up. First off, your neighbors are going, Jesus Christ,
Uh,
right? Like,
Thar she blows.
right. They're like, that lady's so grouchy with her dog. Why does she even have a dog? And, too, the dog is like, this is something good, right?
Yeah.
Your dog is telling you, oh my God, there's this thing, right? And their dog is excited
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. Um, and they're trying to communicate with you because they're super excited and they want you to be excited.
Yeah.
So if you're like, Fluffy, yep, good, come, they're like, okay. So it's validating what they're trying to tell you. And this is the piece I always kind of hit at. Some weirdos looking in your windows and Fluffy starts losing their mind. I don't know anybody that says, well, I don't want my dog to bark if there's a stranger.
Yeah.
People always say, because I ask them, I'm like, well, how does your dog know when it's a good person at the door or in your backyard or a bad person? How does the dog supposed to know the difference?
Yeah.
Do you want your dog to bark when there's a bad person at the door and in peeking in your windows or at your car? Well, yeah,
Always. Always.
great. That's why we teach them your words.
Absolutely. I see the definite wisdom in that because we do want Fluffy to bark and we don't have to tell them to bark. We don't have to
Right.
show fear for them to bark because that's teaching them something else. If they're barking, if they're scaring away whatever isn't supposed to be there, that's awesome. If they're in the yard showing you something and wanting to share it with you, then that's awesome.
Yeah. Again, it's that relationship.
Yeah.
Whether the dog is barking at the thing because it wants to protect you from it and it doesn't know what it is in the yard because it's a weird leaf or a piece of tin
Mhm.
foil or plastic plastic bag that blew into your backyard.
Yeah.
But the key is for you to be able to recall them back. Say, yep, I see it. It's good. Come here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's that piece to it that you're validating the dog. You're thanking them for alerting you. And now come here and let me reward you for that. That was great.
Because that's awesome with them having that relationship with you and that they will do that and you're building that. If you ever are out and they do get away or are barking at something, that they will come to you, that they trust
Absolutely.
you, that they're not afraid to come back to you, and that you can get them back on the leash again or whatever the situation be, that they come to you.
Yeah, and what we have found is, because people are like, oh my gosh, my dog, my kids opened the door and the dog took off and was
Mhm.
over at the neighbors, and I was yelling, Fluffy, come, Fluffy, come. But as soon as I said, good, that dog turned around and hauled back. I said, well, yeah, they know what good means. Good means they're getting a cookie. Come,
Absolutely.
maybe you worked on it, maybe you haven't, or
Yeah.
maybe you used that word before, but you were calm. So they didn't
Uh-huh.
know if it would be good or bad. But as soon as you say good,
Yeah.
they know that cookie is coming. So yeah,
I
they're
had
going to
to
turn around and come to you.
I had that exact situation happen to me several weeks ago. Dogs got out the front yard and I was like, oh, I kept controlling my voice and they came back. I used the right words that I would normally use and I'm like, oh, it worked. It really worked. One last thing about barking. Do you believe that there's a see for me, I there's the barks where my dogs are barking. Yeah, they're barking. But there's this other bark where I take it a serious bark where I know
Yeah.
that they feel or sense danger for whatever reason, and I take that bark seriously. Do you believe that, is that a real thing?
Oh, absolutely. In a doggy daycare environment, we actually have a training video that is black. So the screen is black, right? and they have to listen to 4 different types, I think it's 4 different types of barks, and identify. Is it an alarm bark? Is it a there's something super scary bark? Is it I'm playing and I want your attention bark? We know that one, right? The alarm barking is usually like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's usually a little lower, to where your attention bark's usually a little higher. And then there's just the I'm just gonna bark. Hey, 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 right? So we look at
Yeah.
the tone, high or low, the consistency. Is it roof, 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 and it keeps going at that same rhythm? Or is it roof, 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 roof?
Yeah.
So, yes, absolutely. There are different tones in there. With hunting dogs, when they're on the trail of whatever it is that they're sniffing out, there are different noises. They have and we call it the alert, where it's just woof, woof, as they're scenting. When they really catch it, they know they're getting close to whatever it is that they're trying to catch. It's woof, 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 woof. And then when the thing has run up the tree, let's say it's a raccoon or something, um, or they get to the site where they needed to be. If it's a pheasant dog, the pheasant dogs freeze. The hound dogs, then it's the high alert. It's "Roar, roar, 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 roar. Hey,
Yeah.
hey, it's right here, come get it, come get it."
Yep.
So, and it's no different whether it's search and rescue dogs, police dogs. The tone is different, obviously based on the
Uh-huh.
breed, right? Your Chihuahua
Mhm.
versus your German Shepherd,
Yeah.
but how that barking is signaling us is all the same. It's
Mhm.
this biological communication thing across all breeds, the alarm, the alert, the attention getting barking. So yeah, and I mean,
Yeah.
when you're, again, if you're just listening for that bark, you can tell. Now when you're on the walk, that's where it gets a little harder because you've got external noises in your urban environment. And that's where you look at the dog's body language with the bark. But yeah, I mean, when we're in a daycare environment, and we separate our dogs into different play groups. But yeah, I mean, I'm bent over picking up some pee in one spot and I hear a bark and I'll turn and go, because I know that tone means that something was escalating that I didn't want to escalate. So we have to be very aware in a group, that's loud, and we allow barking. We allow them to bark and say hello to each other and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you have to know the tone and, um, the intensity of that bark and what they mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting how they communicate in so many different ways.
Mhm. And you experience it every day, which is what's so cool because you know it. It's like, well, of course, it's your business.
Yeah,
And it's what you do every day, which I think is I went into the wrong part of the business. I love dog walking, but I think a doggy daycare would just be so much fun. And so how people, if they want to look for you online, they have the Facebook page.
yeah, yeah. So we have two Facebook pages. We have Fun for Pets Doggy Daycare and Boarding, and that is the daycare and boarding side. And then we have Fun for Pets Training Program. And that's we put up tips and tricks on there. We run a nonprofit in our dog daycare, so it's our way to give back to the community, called Second Chance to Shine. And these are shelter dogs, from shelters and rescues that are typically on euthanization lists. They have some attitude adjusting that needs to be done, or they're super barky in their kennel, so they're not looked at as very well adoptable dogs. And so those dogs, when we work with them, that goes on our training program page. So you can see the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
You'll see the dog losing its mind and how we're working to redirect them. And sometimes you'll see us making it happen, and sometimes you'll see us not making it happen. And we show all of that because training, although it is a science, it isn't perfect the first time around. And that's typically where pet parents get frustrated.
Yeah.
I tried this and it didn't work. Okay, so let's talk about dialing it back,
Yeah.
right? Like the find it, your dog may not get it the first 3 times, maybe 4 times. Try a different treat, make it a stinkier treat, make it something they really want
Uh-huh.
the first few times. So then you can back off and then just do your store bought treat or do their kibble, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to encourage them. The first time you rode a bike, It wasn't, "Hey, hop on, let's go." It was,
Yeah.
"Okay, so it's gonna wobble a little bit." You kinda talk them through the steps in the process, and you practice on the grass maybe instead of the concrete. And you do those things because you're setting the stage, you're setting
Yeah.
it up for a positive. And same thing with dog training. If people tell me something isn't working, we dial it back. We might say, "Okay, don't do it at all, and I want you to hand feed, and every time you hand the dog the food, I want you to say, 'Find it.'" Like, we might dial it all the way back to that to set the
Yeah.
dog up.
Yeah.
So it's a process, and not everything works for every dog.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're all different, and that's kinda like as in humans, not everything works for me that may work for somebody else, and when you find it, it is so magical. Well,
Absolutely.
it feels that way because it works and it's good,
Yeah,
and it makes you go, "Okay, I can move on to this next thing," because it is a relationship you build with your dog, and,
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's where, we had a Great Dane that was not food motivated. It didn't matter. I mean, it didn't matter what I tried. The only thing that kind of worked was sardines, and those are just nasty to work with,
oh, yeah,
period.
yeah.
And they stink. but but the dog loved physical touch.
Yeah.
So when we would go out on our walks, and it was highly reactive, when it would see other dogs on a walk, and it's a big dog. I mean, it was 160
Oh, yeah,
pounds.
yeah.
I don't weigh that much. So it was okay. We need to make sure that we have control.
Yeah.
And because the dog was tall, I found that I had my hands up,
Oh, yeah.
not relaxed.
Yeah.
So I was part of the problem because the dog was taller. So I felt like I had to have my hands up in the air higher. So I waist belt, and then I went back to put my thumb in my pocket. Okay, so now I'm loose leash. Okay, let's see how that worked. That worked a little better.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we went to the dog loved physical touch. So before we went on our walk, I would scratch its butt. And again, it was a Dane, so it made it really easy, right? It was like
Yeah.
right at that level. And I'd go, good.
Yeah.
And then it would have turned and looked at me. Then I would scratch the top of the head or the
Oh,
ears.
yeah.
So I would touch the butt to get the attention. And then when it would look, then I would touch the head. That worked phenomenally well
Yeah.
for that dog.
Yeah.
For littler dogs where I'm bending over because I'm taller than they are, right? Like a French bulldog
Uh-huh.
or something. I would take a chucket, the plastic piece of a chucket where you would put the ball in, or you could use a yardstick or like the extra long paint sticks,
Uh-huh.
and I would put little peanut butter on it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I didn't have to bend over.
Good
I'd
idea.
call the dog's name, Fluffy. They'd look, here you go, lick, take a lick, and then the sticks back up.
Yeah.
So you figure out what works for the dog and for you. I
Yeah.
mean, and truly, and for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that relationship. It's finding what works for the both of you. I think that's so important. Now, do you have lessons online that people can take?
Yeah, so we actually offer Zoom classes,
Ooh, yay.
right? Thank you, pandemic, for introducing
Yes.
us to Zoom. And that's worked out great for people that are all over the place. W- we've done, we've had people from Maine join our Zoom classes. We just had somebody from New Mexico join a Zoom class, and we made them affordable. It's $15. You max
Yeah.
out at six people in a class. So there is not, it ends in an hour. It ends
Uh-huh.
when it ends. It ends when we've gotten to everybody.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about the Zoom is if you have a dog that is just too scared to go to, like, you go to a class and it shuts
Yeah.
down,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The nervousness of it, or your dog
Yep.
is just so reactive that there's just no way it can be in a room with another dog.
Mhm.
That's where this Zoom training comes in.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that idea. Because 'cause I'll tell this quick story. When I took my Millie to her first class, she was such a timid puppy. Not now,
Sure.
but as a puppy, she was timid. She pooped and peed all over the place in her first class. So there's me.
Star
Oh,
student. Yep.
and but she was eventually. But
Yeah.
I was cleaning it up, and the leader of the class had her and was using her to help teach us. I was cleaning all that up, and but ultimately she was the best learner. She's a fantastic walker, and but that first class, if we could have had that at home over Zoom, oh,
Right.
that would have been
Right.
amazing. That is fantastic. I will put those links on the website. I will put them on the YouTube because I think that's important. And I may be joining one of those classes because it's
Yeah.
good to have that reinforcement. I'm a dog walker. I walk dogs and I am the one in charge. I do all that stuff when I'm walking other people's dogs. When I'm at home, I am that trainer. I like that relationship with my dog and it makes such a difference.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In our Zoom classes, we call them name your pain. So it's not, you're coming in to do obedience. You are coming in to name your pain
Oh,
and what are we working on? So
right
it is,
on.
it's about as close to one-on-one
Uh-huh.
training as you're going to get. And then the
Yeah.
benefit is, okay, so now you're worked on this. And then maybe you join another Zoom class in a month and now you've
Yeah.
got a different pain because you've mastered your first one. So now
Yeah.
let's move on to your next pain.
That sounds so wonderful. Do you teach it or does one of your other
I have two other
trainers do it?
trainers that will pop on because they have multiple dogs in their household. So one of our trainers specializes in reactivity
Huh?
and feral dogs, and then the other trainer has done show jogs and canine good citizen stuff. So they both are on the Zoom, so that way you're getting a good mix. And then they both have multiple dogs. So if your
Yeah.
dog is, doing something crazy, like again, barking at strangers or the doorbell, the one
Uh-huh.
trainer will be like, okay, so set your dog up, show me what you're doing, and then she'll show you using her dog what to do, and then she'll
Yeah.
have you do it. So then she can critique you and help you in your environment, right? So
Oh,
that's the other thing. Like
yeah.
we have a lot of dogs that are like, they came to class, no reactivity. We
Uh-huh.
couldn't make them do stuff. We're ringing our doorbell, we're
Yeah.
doing this and that. But then the people would go home and their doorbell would go off, and then the dog would go off. So this way,
Yeah.
it's specific to you in your home, in your environment.
And it's so affordable because I know in my area to have a trainer come to your home, it's over $100 a session.
Yes. Yep. And that's just it. It's Zoom. We're
Mhm.
home, we might have our pajama bottoms on,
Yeah.
like it again, it's not as much of a huge commitment for us as trainers because we're not
Yeah.
having to drive to your home. There's the drive time, there's the insurance
Yeah.
liability, me
Oh,
walking
yeah.
into your home and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And it's a safety thing. Again, especially if it's a
Yes.
reactive dog or a dog that is
Yeah.
just too scared to do
Mhm.
anything. It's a personal experience and the dog's at ease. You can breathe better, right? Because now you're not
Uh-huh.
holding that energy of walking into a classroom and, oh my gosh, what is my dog going to do that's going to
Oh,
humiliate
yeah.
me today? um
Yeah,
so
I know that.
yeah, I mean, we've all been there, right? Like even when
Yeah.
I'm working with training dogs, I'm like, okay, please be on your best behavior right now.
Yeah.
So we're not holding on to that as we're walking into a classroom.
Uh-huh.
You're in your home. And please don't clean your house, don't try and set it up. We need to see what
Yeah.
your dog is doing.
Yeah.
Leave
Yeah.
the couch where it is that your dog is, ripped to shreds because it jumps up on there and bounces off
Uh-huh.
your glass window trying to eat the mailman as he's putting a package.
For sure. Oh, Eve, it's been such a great talk with you, as always.
Oh, well, thank you. This is always fun. I love to help people have a better relationship with their pet, and it just makes everybody and the world a better place.
Absolutely. I so agree with you. And I hope we'll have you on again.
We will
Hopefully
see
next
you.
month.
Yeah, we will see you next month for sure.
We'll have May's episode. And I already have in the back of my mind an idea of what we'll talk about then.
Exciting.
Thank you.